Hello everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Samuel Joy Cherian, who is the founder of HUNTR, which is an AI-driven labor marketplace that helps enterprises to hire employees, then train them and onboard thousands of blue-collar and gray-collar workers within days. Hi Samuel, welcome to the show.
Hi, Priya. Thank you so much for having me.
Uh, to start with, Samuel, I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a bit about your life before entrepreneurship. Like, what all things did you do? Where did you study? And how did you land up in the entrepreneur journey itself?
Sure. I'm originally from India, from Kerala, from the capital of Kerala called Trivandrum. I did my schooling in a school called St. Thomas in Trivandrum, and then went on to Velo Institute of Technology in Tamil Nadu. And 10 years back, I moved to Dubai, uh, right after university, I would say, and started my career working for the Emirates Group, specifically in the manpower division. Emirates is a very large group, and Emirates Airlines being known as one of the best airlines in the world. I started with the manpower division, which started with the aviation sector, went on to like multiple different sectors, has over 86,000 plus migrant blue collar workers in that company. And so I led large digital transformation projects for them.
Okay. And how did you, or how did you think about entrepreneurship? Like, you could have been doing the same thing over and over again. Then why do something on your own?
Yeah, I was actually, to be honest, in a very comfortable position, getting my paycheck on a month-to-month basis. And I was fortunate to be, recognized by the senior management. I was working closely with the managing director of the company. And so when I discovered the problem, it was in fact first the company wanted to invest in the product, and wanted it to be a company-wide product. I was very excited about it and realized that this would be a game changer for especially for somebody like me. And so I pursued that initially. So it was not that I was ventured out in the beginning itself. I pursued that, and one of the challenges in the corporate environment is that there is a lot of layers in corporate, and getting approvals, and there are vetted interest, all of those. And so months went down, like just like a blink of a second, and I realized that this particular product will not probably work through a corporate venture program or a corporate incubation, but it would be better to start it off as a startup itself, because startup has its own advantages, which is being lean and moving really fast. And so I remember speaking to my brother-in-law, who is also a businessman. He's a serial entrepreneur. So he he is one person who really advised me that I should just quit my job and just go into building HUNTR. And most of the people around me, including my family members, mentioned, don't do that. You need to have a stable job. You have income coming in every month, and so it's probably not wise to quit your job. And so I had this one person telling me, no, you should do it. And I think that person is always really important. For a lot of people, they really feel strongly and they would just do it anyway. But people who are, questioning, that one person who's a significant influence in your life, saying that would make a big difference.
Okay. Uh, let's talk about the product a little bit. Like, you said there was a reason why it couldn't see the light of the day. But can you tell us from the very beginning what was the problem that it was solving and how it was solving it?
Yeah, so the product which we have right now is very different to what it was initially conceptualized for. Um, I believe that's the journey of a startup, right? You pivot and you improve and you learn a lot, especially by executing. And so the first initial concept or the problem, I would say, let's start with the problem, which is large enterprises in the Middle East hire in high volumes of workforce, which is
Mm,
different to one-off hirings. So for white collar jobs, you have LinkedIn, and for one-off blue collar jobs, you have a platform like Indeed. But when it comes to high volume hiring, and so I'm talking about 300 to 500 people on a monthly basis, which is a quite a normal thing here in the Middle East. You don't have platforms. And so typically this is done through legacy systems over the years. And so companies work through recruitment agencies back in the home country across Asia and Africa to bring in workforce. But because there is a lot of players involved, there's a lot of brokers involved, there are not much technology which is being used. There are a lot of inefficiencies created in the process, a lot of misinformation, a lot of coordination as well, and so a lot of misinformation and misalignment with the job, which would then eventually turn out to be where the migrant blue collar workers who went through that process, some do at times get exploited. One, cannot get the right information about the job. They are also in financial burden. They take on financial burdens, and they also are unhappy with the job. And so there's a very high attrition of workforce. And so this is a common challenge which we've seen with a lot of the large enterprises, that the attrition of workforce is really high, and that is because of the supply chain issues, which is found in hiring migrant blue collar workers by large enterprises. And so, in the concept which was initially came about was a two-sided marketplace. So just like a LinkedIn, I would say, or any marketplace or job marketplace out there, we create a technology platform. We create an iOS and Android app for both the company and for the migrant blue collar workers. Through that, so that was the initial concept, which was pitched to the company which I work for, and I realized, when we started working on it, we spent some time building the product and conceptualizing what that looks like. But when we went to the market, we realized that this product wouldn't scale. We came across different challenges, and predominantly one of the challenges that, we're working with migrant blue collar workers, and so a lot of them are not educated, and so things like, for example, uploading certain documentations in order for their visas and for their onboarding process, they were not done on time, and as a result, our operations team, from an enterprise perspective, their projects get delayed as a result. So that's one of the challenges. Second thing is that, mobile apps, where not everybody downloads mobile apps, and especially from a enterprise perspective, also not everyone is, because of protocol reasons and stuff. Companies are not allowed to download mobile apps, and so a couple of challenges, but I would highlight these two for why it wasn't a scalable solution. And so we then pivoted into a three-sided marketplace, which where we discovered that, a third piece is very important, which is the service providers. Now, these are vetted service providers. They can be training organization, recruitment agencies, and also government institutions who have access to hundreds and thousands of blue collar workers back in the home country, and empower them with technology to ensure that a lot of the labor intensive processes are digitized, and there's transparency in the process, there's speed, and efficiency in terms of the work that they do. So that's how we pivoted.
Interesting. Curious to know how efficient is the current process. The way I see it, I think you digitize the various stakeholders and various steps in the process. But the cross country labor market is also, it comes with certain lot of regulations and lot of nuances, like how do you transfer money, how do you the cross border payment or cross border visa. and a lot of complexities that come with it. So how do you navigate that through your platform?
Interesting question. Yeah, you're right. So each country has their own regulatory frameworks in terms of sending people from their country, especially in volume, to another country. And so, one is first thing which we had to look at was which industry do we really like zone in on, because there's multiple industries involved. And so we really zoned in on, at that time it was healthcare workers, especially COVID, post-COVID, healthcare workers were very high in demand. And so we really like focus on the healthcare industry. And that's the first thing which we did. Second thing is choosing a country, because you don't want to be all over the place, because exactly for the reason which you mentioned, that each country have their own regulatory frameworks. And so we chose India, and India has its own. India is also far more advanced when it comes to sending workforce abroad compared to a lot of other Asian and African countries. And so we really deeply learned how that framework works. And so, in fact, when we started out, a lot of the processes, like how Y Combinator states, do things that don't scale. And so we did a lot of things manually, and we learned a lot of the regulatory frameworks as well. And but an important piece is translating that learning into digital, or systemizing that process. And so we understood what that process looks like by doing things manually, but then we started digitizing those processes. And so how it works currently is from a marketplace. So we have different products. We started with a marketplace, and I guess with the marketplace, one of the advantages, you get to see a lot of other opportunities, especially when you're like building marketplaces. And so when aggregating service providers and aggregating large enterprises, we also saw of how the documentation process is also broken. And so a lot of the companies don't even use any type of platform when it comes to documentation. And you have first generational tools like SAP and Oracle, but they're not meant for high volume recruiting. And you have spreadsheets which you can use, of course, but spreadsheets are of limitations. And high volume hiring and documentation process in high volume hiring is its own challenge. And so we came about building a product for documentation. And then as we started getting more traction, we also realized that we are getting a lot of data when it comes to one, the type of jobs which are being hired, and the type of investments which are going into the Middle East, and what that translates into job opportunities from a demand perspective. And from a supply perspective, what type of jobs, where do you get the people for? Like where the highest concentration, let's say in India, if it's drivers, it's typically in Punjab or in Kerala. If it's healthcare workers, it's usually in Kerala and Philippines. When you think about hospitality workers, Nepal, you think about Kathmandu, but we also saw that Japa has a very high concentration of hospitality institution. As a result, you get a lot of hospitality workforce from Japa. So those type of data, and we also got data in terms of what are the timelines in bringing them into the country. What are the regulatory frameworks in terms of bringing people, high volume migrant workforce from that particular country into the Middle East. And so we then build a demand forecasting and supply forecasting tool, leveraging the marketplace and the documentation data.
Got it. And I also understand there is a play of AI here. I think AI is playing a great role these days in recruitment. First of all, the traditional shortlisting of resume. So AI can scan through the CVs and compare it with the job description and find out a pool of people who fit the job requirement. But nowadays, AI has become way more advanced, and instead of creating a pool of talents, it will give you like one or two CVs that match a particular role. So that's one, and then there is Agent AI, which is a new thing, and lot of processes like interviewing candidates and documentation and everything can be done by AI agents now. So
Yeah.
can you tell us how you are going about AI and how AI is either disrupting or being a sustainable part of your process?
Sure. So, yeah, those are all really good points, by the way. And I would probably touch on the documentation a bit, which we are working on right now. So we have, let's say, about different companies have different types of documentation that they require in order to issue their visa one, and then also just for compliance purposes from a company policy perspective. And so, but an average would be like between 5 to 15, I would say. And an average would be like maybe like around 10 documentation per migrant blue collar worker. And so companies which are hiring, let's say about, I don't know, like 5,000 migrant blue collar workers would be then having to deal with like 50,000 documentations. And the surprising bit is like there are no typically companies are not using any software, and so a lot of these documentation are collected manually first of all. And so what we did is we created the documentation platform to streamline a lot of the migrant blue collar worker documentation process. And now we are using AI. So we've seen of how how AI has been developing really fast, and just that just accelerated a lot of things. And so agentic AI bots can help in terms of, instead of uploading the documentation directly onto the all these individual documents to a per migrant blue card worker in order to get their visas issued. You still need a person to like upload those documents, right? And so the agentic AI kind of like eliminates that manual cumbersome process where they upload the right documentation at the right place, which saves a lot of time. And so that is one example, and that obviously speeds up in terms of onboarding candidates and bringing them into the country much quicker. And then two is on, I touched upon the AI for demand forecasting and supply forecasting. So we built in a feature where any investments by the UAE government or the Saudi government, which goes into the infrastructure. And I would say the industry which we are focused on right now is infrastructure, because everything else connected to infrastructure. And so any investment which goes into the infrastructure investment, we monitor that. And the platform basically essentially breaks it down to what those positions look like and what are the job opportunities which comes out from those investments. And so we are more proactive in the way we approach things. And then from a supply perspective, because we have data into the different countries that are being hired from in terms of locations, in terms of skill set, in terms of like timelines, the a pipeline can be created, and you can look into what that pipeline looks like from Asia and Africa. And that for that we're using AI as well. So that's a game changer in our sector, especially for companies which are heavy in terms of labor workforce, which they need, like for logistics companies or aviation industries or ports or warehouses or even like startups, marketplace startups, which are using a lot of blue collar workers, like drivers, for example. And so it becomes a competitive advantage for them getting that access to data. And then second is, using that data to leverage being competitive in the market when it comes to hiring migrant blue collar workers. So I probably touch on these two features, which are there in our platform.
Okay. Uh, Looking from a candidate's point of view, if you look at their journey, so they first probably discover your app through their peers, or maybe they find it on Play Store. They install the app, do the documentations, and maybe they land up on a job. But with most of the recruitment partners, that is where the journey ends. You don't engage, at least typically the recruiting agencies, they do not engage after that point with the candidate. So is there any post recruitment modules that you have been developing, or thinking about, like how do they send money cross border, or how do they land up in another job, or anything that sort of.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So we have been looking into that space, but the pre-employment space or the pre-hiring space, especially is where there are not many technology players, and it is also a difficult problem, and so the advantage of having a difficult problem is that when you succeed in building solutions for the difficult problem, and when you scale, that's your biggest moat, because that becomes your market barrier to entry. And so, all our efforts and our unit effort, it goes into like the pre-hiring space and solving that particular space. And so, as a CEO, I have to look into like what are the efforts that we put into like the other sectors as well. Although, yes, the leverage which we have is we have the candidates and who are on board on our platform. We have, so our cost of acquisition is very less compared to like other players who want to like acquire those users. So we are aware of that, and so what we have done is we are now partnering with post hiring solutions. So for example, we are talking to a company which is a AI career coach. So our initial step is like, especially migrant workers who can't afford to put food on the table back in the home country because of the lack of opportunities, are getting a job, and there is a safe passage for them to get a job. There's a transparent process for them to get a job, and they do get land a job, but it may not be their dream job. And so this AI career coach would help them in terms of breaking down what are the actionable step by step or a daily milestone which I need to hit in order for me to get to the job which I aspire to. So that's something which we are partnering with one of the leading companies which is doing the AI career coach. That's one example of it. And then yes, we've been talking to remittance players as well in terms of sending money back home. That's another piece as well, and also building communities because we have access to a lot of the candidates after they come here. And community building would be something of important to the workers who are already here, and marketplaces like mini marketplaces like identifying local grocery stores offering discounts, electronics, because migrant workers typically buy electronics and to when they go back home. And so you can't build all of this. So what we are building is basically an ecosystem for like other players to come in and partner with other players so that they can really plug into our ecosystem and then offer their services to the migrant workers. So that's really the strategy which we're going after, and not really building ourselves.
Okay. Uh, and here is my final question, which is around entrepreneurship. So all these years of being an entrepreneur in a company and then jumping onto entrepreneurship, what are the different lessons that you have learned in building platforms and managing people, and that too in a global environment, dealing with cross-border complexities and the regulations that comes along with it?
Sure. So, my first thing when starting a startup, what I would usually say to entrepreneurs is that, do not build a company just for the sake of like making a lot of money and for fame and for power. When you're a first-time founder, typically you should look into a problem which is a deep societal problem. And once you create a solution for it, it enables human flourishing. So if your North Star is like enabling human flourishing, you can wake up every day and work hard, regardless of whether it's a good day or a bad day. And you can also hire the right people because they are also, they want to work on a mission which is enabling human flourishing. There are also investors to fund because you align with their capital allocation. And so it might be more difficult as a startup. You might want to like go after like easy quest, but it might be difficult. But as I mentioned before, that if you succeed, that is your moat, and it becomes a barrier for especially for new entrants. And another piece which I would say is, as a first-time founder, I highly recommend joining an accelerator program. So for me, I went through Techstars and Praxis, which really helped me because they have mentors and managing directors who have basically become who were a founder, and they have a lot of experience, and they really help you to understand how the game works and help you with the external internal drivers for your business as well. And another piece which I would probably touch upon is hiring. As a CEO, a lot of your time is actually spent on hiring. And so hiring is key. And I made mistakes in hiring, but what I learned from mistakes is that you either hire the best or you hire someone who's hungry and has a growth mindset to personality and also to personally grow within the company. And so can this person outgrow in terms of mindset over the company's growth? That's an important question to ask, and also be like future focused when it comes to hiring, not just for the problems of today, but what are the problems which will arise in the future and hiring based on that. Also, another piece which I would say is there are a lot of variables in problems that you're solving, and you need to bring the order to the chaos because you can scale order, but you cannot scale chaos. So how do you do this? And you do this by setting up systems that can measure your unit effort and building metrics to scale your business, similar to the regulation, like regulatory factors and cross-border problems that you were saying. How do I bring order to this chaos? Because you cannot scale chaos. You can scale order. And finally, I would say culture is key. And so, if the CEO is not intentional about the culture, automatically there will be a culture which is formed, and it may not be the culture which you as a CEO wanted. And
Mm.
so, from the start itself, it's really important to build a culture, and especially a culture where the CEO's job is not to operate the business, but to also ensure that your team members are, they are empowered with the resources and also solving their biggest challenge because they are the ones who are basically building the business, and our job as a CEO is to serve them. And so that's one aspect of the culture, but the different aspects of culture, the CEO needs to be more intentional about it. And so that would probably be my takeaways.
I think at this note, we will close the session. Thanks for joining us, Samuel. It was a pleasure to have you on our platform. Plus, we learned a lot about cross-border hiring and how the world is changing through these sort of initiatives. So, yeah, kudos to you and my best wishes for the platform that you are building.
Thank you. Thank you, Priya.